Imagine that each student that graduates from your school would receive a special graph along with their diploma. This would be a circle graph showing the percentages of how they spent their time in school and doing homework. There would be a slice for reading, one for history, one for Bible, and so on. All of them would have a slice dedicated to math, and it would probably be one of the bigger ones. How would you defend that investment of time? Why do we spend so much time on numbers? Is it because we live in the age of data? Is it because of the opportunities in the field of science? Welcome back to the Doc School Leader Podcast, where we're dedicated to the renewal and growth of school leaders. I'm your host, Kyler Martin. We hope to help you lead your school community with greater wisdom and courage. Transformative schools need effective leaders, and effectiveness requires patient training. Here we go. So, why teach math? John Swartz, our speaker today, is ambitious here. Hear him connect the question of why he teaches math with the question of why he exists, along with stories of Almanzo Wilder and his own experience. He brings teaching experience as well as specific training in mathematics. He's worked in curriculum at Christian Light and also served as a minister for many years. In this episode, John quotes Larry Zimmerman, who states that, quote, Christian teachers motivate their students to learn mathematics in two ways. First, mathematics exhibits the glory of God. Second, mathematics equips students to care for the creation. This comes from Zimmerman's book, Truth and the Transcendent. You can find a link in the show notes for that free book. It's published online. John recognizes the utilitarian value of mathematics, but he's most interested in exploring what Zimmerman is describing as math being the language of the universe. And as you'll hear, John does not think that math is a neutral subject. Here's John with a thought-provoking investigation of an under-examined subject that occupies quite a bit of space in all of our schools.
Why teach math? Well, if every school teaches math, like, reading, writing, arithmetic, we should know why. So why do we teach math? Why does your school teach math? That's a question I'd like for you to answer. Why does your school teach math? If you teach it, you should have a reason. I got some quotes from some articles on math. We want them to be stewards of the gifts that God has entrusted to them. Whatever our students do when they grow up, numbers will be an integral part of their lives. Let us do all we can to prepare them to be able stewards of what God calls them to do. Arithmetic equals God plus order plus reason. Arithmetic shows us the wisdom of our God of order. Math is an experience in orderly thinking. Math is also a lesson in training the reason. God's numbers are absolute. Math is a study that requires careful thinking and logical problem solving. Math is not so much about the answer, as many students think, as it is about the method of solving the problem. Math prepares a person for life in many ways. It teaches a student to approach problems in a logical way. Carefulness, doing neat work, checking their work, keeping track of how one came to a conclusion. Valuable assets through life. Here's one more yet. A mechanic carefully recalculates the inch-pounds to foot-pounds conversion before checking the torque on the engine head bolts. A carpenter checks his calculations to be sure the lumber is being cut to the right length. A housewife multiplies mentally to be sure she added enough flour to the cookie dough. These individuals are thankful for a teacher who taught them the value of careful mathematic calculation. Utilitarian reasons for teaching math, is that it? Let me read something here from Farmer Boy. Some of you will probably recognize this. But it was Independence Day, and it was a big deal. And Almanzo, I'll just break in here. There was a lemonade stand by the hitching post. A man sold pink lemonade, a nickel a glass, and a crowd of the town boys were standing around him. Cousin Frank was there. Almanzo had a drink at the town pump, but Frank said he was going to buy lemonade. He had a nickel. He walked up to the stand and bought a glass of the pink lemonade and drank it slowly. He smacked his lips and rubbed his stomach and said, why don't you buy some? Where'd you get the nickel? Almanzo asked. He had never had a nickel. Father gave him a penny every Sunday to put in the collection box in church, but he had never had any other money. My father gave it to me, Frank bragged. My father gives me a nickel every time I ask him. Well, so would my father if I asked him, said Almanzo. Well, why don't you ask him? Frank did not believe that father would give Almanzo a nickel. Almanzo did not know whether father would or not. "'Cause I don't want to," he said. "He wouldn't give you a nickel," Frank said. "He would too." "I dare you to ask him," Frank said. The other boys were listening. Almanzo put his hands in his pockets and said, "I was just as lief ask him if I wanted to." "Yeah, you're scared," Frank jeered. "Double dare, double dare." Father was a little way down the street talking to Mr. Paddock, the wagon maker. Almanzo walked slowly toward them. He was faint-hearted, but he had to go. The nearer he got to Father, the more he dreaded asking for a nickel. He had never before thought of doing such a thing. He was sure Father would not give it to him. He waited till Father stopped talking and looked at him. "What is it, son?" Father asked. Almanzo was scared. "Father," he said. "Well, son?" "Father," Almanzo said, would you give me a nickel?" He stood there while Father and Mr. Paddock looked at him, and he wished he could get away. Finally, Father asked, "What for?" Almanzo looked down at his moccasins and muttered, "Frank had a nickel. He bought pink lemonade." "Well," Father said slowly, "if Frank treated you, it's only right you should treat him." Father put his hand in his pocket. Then he stopped and asked, "Did Frank treat you to lemonade?" Almanzo wanted so badly to get the nickel that he nodded. Then he squirmed and said, "No, Father." Father looked at him a long time. Then he took out his wallet and opened it, and slowly he took out a round, big silver $50. He asked, "Almanzo, do you know what this is?" $50, Almanzo answered. "Yes, but do you know what $50 is?" Almanzo didn't know it was anything but $50. "It's work, son," Father said. "That's what money is. It's hard work." Mr. Paddock chuckled. "The boy's too young, Wilder," he said. "You can't make a youngster understand that." "Almanzo's smarter than you think," said Father. Almanzo didn't understand at all. He wished he could get away. But Mr. Paddock was looking at Father just as Frank looked at Almanzo when he double dared him. And Father had said Almanzo was smart, so Almanzo tried to look like a smart boy. Father asked, "You know how to raise potatoes, Almanzo?" "Yes," Almanzo said. "Say you have a seed potato in the spring. What do you do with it?" "You cut it up," Almanzo said. "Go on, son." "Then you harrow. First you manure the field and plow it. Then you harrow and mark the ground and plant the potatoes and plow them and hoe them. You plow and hoe them twice." "That's right, son. And then?" "Then you dig them and put them down cellar." "Yes," this is Father talking. "Then you pick them over all winter. You throw out all the little ones and the rotten ones. Come spring, you load them up and haul them here to Malone, and you sell them. And if you get a good price, son, how much do you get to show for that work? All that work. How much do you get for half a bushel of potatoes?" $50, Almanzo said. "Yes," said Father, "that's what's in this $50, Almanzo. The work that raised a half bushel of potatoes is in it." Almanzo looked at the round piece of money that Father held up. It looked small compared with all that work. "You can have it, Almanzo," Father said. Almanzo could hardly believe his ears. Father gave him the heavy $50. "It's yours," said Father. "You could buy a sucking pig with it if you want to. You could raise it, and it would raise a litter of pigs worth $4 or $5 apiece. Or you can trade that $50 for lemonade and drink it up. You do as you want. It's your money." Almanzo forgot to say thank you. He held the $50 a minute, then he put his hand in his pocket and went back to the boys by the lemonade stand. The man was calling out, "Step this way, step this way. Ice cold lemonade, pink lemonade, only 5 cents a glass, only half a dime. Ice cold pink lemonade, the 20th part of a dollar." Frank asked Almanzo, "Where's the nickel?" "He didn't give me a nickel," said Almanzo. And Frank yelled, Yeah, I told you wouldn't. I told you so." "He gave me a $50, said Almanzo. The boys wouldn't believe it till he showed them. Then they crowded around waiting for him to spend it. He showed it to them all and put it back in his pocket. "I'm going to look around," he said, "and buy me a good sucking pig." Now, one more here yet about Almanzo. Um, they had baled hay, and they had this press that a horse compressed the hay, and then his father tied the bales with ash withes. Bales weighed 250 pounds apiece. But his father told Almanzo he could sell the hay. He could take off school day and go to town with him to sell the hay. Father drove first to the livery sale and feed stable. The liveryman came out, and sure enough, Father let Almanzo sell the hay. He stood back and did not say anything, while Almanzo showed the liveryman that the hay was good timothy and clover, clean and bright, and every bale solid and full weight. "How much do you want for it?" the liveryman asked. $2.25 a bale, Almanzo said. "I won't pay that price," said the liveryman. "It isn't worth it." "What would you call a fair price?" Almanzo asked him. "Not a penny over $2, the liveryman said. "All right, I'll take $2, said Almanzo quickly. The liveryman looked at Father, and then he pushed back his hat and asked Almanzo why he priced the hay at $2.25 in the first place. "Are you taking it at $2? Almanzo asked. The liveryman said he was. "Well," Almanzo said, "I asked $2.25 because if I'd asked $2, you wouldn't have paid but $1.75. The liveryman laughed and said to Father, "That's a smart boy of yours." Is that why we teach math? So we have smart little boys and keen young men and sharp businessmen and substantial givers in offering. I want to change the question a little. Why teach math? To why exist? Is there any difference? Why teach math? Why exist? Now, what's the answer to the question, why exist? Should be able to have a Bible verse or two for that. I'm thinking of the one in Revelation 4:11. "Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created." That's why I exist, and that's why I teach math. Matthew 5:16, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." So there we have the good works. We have the honest businessman. People can give good measure and so on. But that the Father may be glorified, it said. Now, Revelation 4:11, Matthew 5:16, does a person have to know math to fulfill those verses? And the next question is, can math help a person fulfill those verses? Now, some examples. When I grew up just down the road from us, our neighbor, Wilmer Lehman, he had a machine shop in Dayton. His dad was a blacksmith, Eve Lehman. He died of stomach cancer. People thought from, at least some of his relatives thought maybe from drinking water that ran off his tar paper roof. But Wilmer, not here, just within the last couple of years, I asked one of his children how far Wilmer went in school. I think they said 4th grade. Our old bishop, he's dead now, Brother Lloyd Horst, he said that Wilmer could fix anything but a broken heart and the break of dawn. And so he kind of followed in his father's footsteps. There was a blacksmith, but much more involved than just, he did commercial work. He did work for big companies. He could do any kind of precision work, 4th grade. Like somebody that lived, well, he's a friend of mine too, but lived next to us for a while. And he was talking about curriculum one time. He knew I worked for Christian Light, and he said, "Oh, it's about like rod and staff. Once you get through 3rd grade, you know everything you need to know for life." So maybe Wilmer proved that. But okay, so but now let me read something here. This is a little different. This is a paper that's presented to at a Geological Society meeting in Canada in 2011. The title of it is Application of Fractional Fourier Transform in Cepstrum Analysis. The summary at the beginning of the article says, source wavelength estimation is the key in seismic signal processing for resolving subsurface structural properties. Homomorphic deconvolution using cepstrum analysis has been an effective method for wavelength estimation for decades. In general, the uses of the Fourier transform of the logarithm of signals Fourier transform is the cepstral domain representation of that signal. The convolution operation of two signals in the time domain becomes an addition in the cepstral domain. The fractional Fourier transform is the generalization of the standard Fourier transform. In FRFT, the transformation kernel is a set of linear chirps, whereas the kernel is composed of complex sinusoids for the fractional Fourier transform. Depending on the fractional analysis over the standard Fourier transform, in this paper we have taken advantage of the multi-domain nature fractional Fourier transform applied to cepstral analysis, and so on. That's the introduction to the article. And it's using Fourier series, Fourier transforms. And then I had heard of such things, but I never really studied them in school. But then I looked up a little bit more about the Fourier series, and it said Fourier series and Fourier inverse Fourier transforms are used in many higher level mathematics, science, and engineering classes such as partial and ordinary differential equations, physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, medicine, speech sciences, communication, science, broadcasting, photography, linguistics, and many more courses. The fast Fourier transform method is used in many areas of research as well as everyday applications in industries. In physics, it is used in solid-state physics, quantum mechanics, and wave mechanics. Chemistry, biology, and geology, electron maps, and other applications use it a lot. In X-ray crystallography, this method is the backbone of the whole study. In engineering, for instance, devices engineered on the basis of fast Fourier transforms are used in the design and construction of smooth-running cars, trains, and airplanes. These devices use fast Fourier transforms to eliminate noises and vibrations. Now, are you glad that when you drive down the road in your car, it doesn't ride on whistle? Well, if you are, you can thank the people that know how to apply Fourier transforms to the design of cars. So can you glorify God with that? Of course. Of course you can. There's a book. Listen, it's when are we ever going to have to use this? But it has in practical problems, everyday problems. It's not in print anymore, but it's still available pretty easily at Amazon. And also there's a chart, a poster that went with that book, and it's still available, I think. Several years ago, because I enjoy math and I enjoy teaching, I tried one year because I hadn't taught for a good while, and I did a little substitute teaching in the public school, but and I enjoy teaching older students, and so I taught 2 classes at a local community college. They were non-credit classes, and community colleges have people come in and teach a class or 2 like that. It saves them a lot of money. They don't pay that much. But anyway, so I taught basic math, which was basic. I mean, like fractions and percents. I had people in there that didn't know how to do it, but they knew how to get the answer on their calculator. And then I taught algebra. And there were like 5 students in there. Well, there were more than 5, but there were 5 of them that were in the nursing program. And the nursing program required the students to pass algebra to whatever they needed to do for their nursing program. Well, these were older, but they didn't know basic algebra. And so we used this book, Introductory Algebra, and it was written for adults. Pearson, publisher, I think. Yeah, and so it cost over $100. And so if you take it while you're in high school, it doesn't cost you that much for one thing. But anyway, why teach math? Prepare our students for now. There's a lot of things you can study in life, and I'm not saying algebra is the most important. But if a student has the opportunity to take it and it doesn't infringe on something else that's more important, then they should take it. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit, and you probably are interested in lots of reasons why I teach math, and the standard reasons, utilitarian type reasons, and they're good reasons. But I'd like to go beyond that a little bit, beyond the utilitarian thinking for just a little bit. God created the universe. And as we study the universe, we get a glimpse of the power, the magnitude, the marvels, the splendor of God. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Mathematics defines and explains, it communicates the principles and workings of the natural sciences. There's an uncanny correlation between the abstract structures of mathematics and the concrete structures of the physical universe, be it quantum mechanics or the head of a daisy. Some of you may have known Ed Geesh. He was trained as a civil engineer. We were talking about this one time, how mathematicians, there's 2 kinds of mathematicians. There's pure mathematicians and applied mathematicians. The pure mathematicians, they do math just for the fun of it, what they can discover or learn. And applied mathematicians, they figure out how they can apply it to everyday real-life situations, more like engineering. But what's interesting is that it's happened over and over, that the things that pure mathematicians discover in working with mathematics, something shows up in the physical world that's a model of. Ed said it's kind of like this. Man, he thinks he discovers something, and then God steps out from behind the bush and says, boo, I was here first. So mathematics is the queen of the sciences. Mathematics is the blueprint of the universe. Mathematics is the language of the universe. Galileo said, the universe cannot be read until we have learned the language and become familiar with the characters in which it is written. It is written in mathematical language. So mathematics is the language of the universe. Mathematics is the blueprint of the universe. In studying mathematics, one is looking at the blueprint God created underlying tangible reality. You may think I'm being abstract, but when you go to build a house, you have a design, you have an architect. And mathematics is the design that's underlying the universe, the structures of the universe. Kepler, who developed what is now called Kepler's laws of planetary motion, said that mathematics enabled him to think God's thoughts after him. What a privilege. There's a book that a few of you might be interested in reading. Well, it came out in this edition, James Nichol, Mathematics is God Silent. And then later on, it was expanded. I never did read the expanded version because it's small print. There's a lot more information. But it's still available. Mathematics is God Silent. Just got a lot more information in than this. And it's a little bit on the theoretical side, but it has some practical stuff in too. You know, people say that, or sometimes the thought is that mathematics is the one subject in the curriculum that's neutral. You know, it's neither spiritual or non-spiritual. And that's far from truth. God is everywhere in mathematics. If mathematics, the blueprint of the universe, describes the underlying pattern of the fabric of nature, it is our honor to search it out and present it to the student. Zimmerman, who had written a manuscript on mathematics, somehow I found out about it, and he sent it to me before it got printed, but then Answers in Genesis picked it up and printed in this book called Truth and the Transcendent. He said this: beauty, power, order, symmetry, infinitude, though these characteristics of mathematics are there for everyone, the Christian sees them in their proper light as reflections of God's attributes. So there is something to be done with content after all. The teacher periodically identifies these qualities for the students and reminds them that what they are beholding are beams of God's glory. I have just a couple others here. Math Wonders to Inspire Teachers and Students by Alfred Posamentier has some sort of fascinating things in about math, patterns and so on. Here's one on the Fibonacci's, fascinating Fibonacci's, Mystery and Magic in Numbers. There's some other books down there. So feel free to look at those. Zimmerman said that Christian teachers motivate their classes in two valid ways to learn mathematics. First, mathematics exhibits the glory of God. Second, mathematics equips students to care for the creation. So caring for the creation, that's more the utilitarian aspect. Glorifying God is more the abstract aspect, or I don't like to think of that as abstract, but I told the people that were writing math curriculum one time for Christian Light, I said when the student finishes a math book, they should be able to say, praise the Lord. Not that they are done with the book, but that it's all God in it. And that's not real easy to accomplish, but it takes some effort. Care for the creation. This is often considered the practical aspect of mathematics, and in many people's minds, this is the reason for studying mathematics. From what has already been written, it should be clear that we hope to accomplish more with the mathematics curriculum than just mastering the practical skills. But the practical skills are basic. Now, just a little bit more on the everyday side. I asked a young lady that's working on a project and seems to be a rather vivacious person. And I asked her what would be some reasons for why I teach math. I don't know if she's 18 or 19. I'm not sure what age she is. So anyway, here's some reasons she gave. So that you can be a whiz at figuring out how your little brother needs to pay your big brother to cover his meal and yours at Rock Feast since you paid for his clothes earlier at Ross. So that you can glance in your card and figure out what brand of butter you need to buy to be able to afford the groceries your sister wants to make a dessert when your mom only sent $18. So that you can look at your bank statement, then in your wallet, and then be able to know if you can afford to write another check to pay for your room and board this month. Okay, back to our previous thought. Mathematics, the blueprint of the universe, mathematics to the glory of God. Far from being a neutral subject, mathematics can be a key subject in the curriculum for teaching a biblical worldview and drawing the student's mind to God and his character. Mathematics gives us a picture of the nature of God, his boundlessness, his precision, his consistency, his dependability, his unchangeableness, his righteousness. It gives us tools to be faithful stewards of our time, our talents, our attitudes, our money. I believe it's the first song we sang this morning. The last verse says, I'll lift my hands, I'll raise my voice, while I have breath to pray or praise. This work shall make my heart rejoice throughout the remnant of my days. We can do that with math. Why teach math? To give the student the tools and the wonder to live to the praise of his glory. Just this morning I read in Psalm 57, Be thou exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let thy glory be above all the earth. And that's why we teach math.
Why did you teach math at your school? Perhaps you could share this talk or these ideas with your staff and launch a productive discussion exploring what really matters in math class. Thanks for listening. If you're finding this podcast helpful, consider leaving us a rating. This will help others find us. Even better, share this episode with someone. And finally, may God, who has called you to the labor of education, prosper your work and fulfill his goodwill through your school.